I personally think that they should have moved faster, that it would be useful to begin to really remove a series of restrictions on Cuba. But, you know, and I don't think, one of the problems is the U.S. and Obama himself made clear that Cuba had to make some concessions, that there had to be some actions by the Cuban government in the more political openness, etc. I think that is a mistake, that we shouldn't condition our policy on Cuba because it delivers it right over to the Cuban government. On the other hand, the Cubans have to show a minimum of goodwill, a minimum. There's no way that any U.S. government can really make progress on the Cuba issue if Cubans are kept in jail under inhuman conditions. There's a certain callousness toward the death of a prisoner. It just makes any progress almost impossible, even if the Obama administration were behind it. It simply is unacceptable, the way the Cubans treat their own people, for us to consider that. And it's a mistake because I think in the end, everybody would be better off, but it's not going to be politically possible as long as the Cubans have such a harsh, repressive police state.
Ray Walzer giving the Castro brothers a say in American policy then?
Well, I have to say that I totally agree with Peter. That
How often do you say that,
It's
Ray?
not that often.
Okay.
It's not that often, but that it is, you've cast it in economic terms, and yes, you can make a good argument that the economic interests of the United States might be advanced by the lifting of restrictions, and some have been. They have been pointed out. I think there's been a change in how you pay for exports. You can now ship and be paid in Havana for goods coming. So there, I mean, there's a good sort of, there's a bit of a flow there. There's a bit of an increase. But you go back, economics or politics, relations with a normal state, relations with a totalitarian state that has been around for 50 years with the same rulers, with the convalescent in chief, as one individual described the Castro sort of condominium. Lack of complete change. Openness in telecommunications, good idea. They arrest in December a U.S. aid worker, 60 years old, click him in jail. You know, what is that? They know that they're signaling things. And there's always been that theory that anytime there's sort of an opening, that the Castro brothers are very good at closing it down by the sorts of things that they're doing, it seems, right now.
So Casey Rupp, what's the next move, and who makes it?
I think dialogue needs to be opened between Raul Castro and Obama. Obama's made countless comments about how he wants to change the Cuban embargo, how the situation's not working right now. And there's a population of 11 million people geographically incredibly close to the United States. And this population is just being untapped economically. And beyond that, it's illogical that we can travel to Iran, Syria, North Korea even, but we can't travel to Cuba. It's illogical. So changes.
Well, maybe if
need
North
to be
Korea
made.
was 90 miles away, we'd have the similar rules on them. But you just heard Ray and Peter talk about those opportunities. You mentioned Obama and him wanting to make an opening to Raul Castro, but every time the United States makes an overture, the Cubans seem to make it clear that they're not going to take an overture on American terms and slam the door shut. What do you make of that?
No, I do. I have to agree. I have to agree with that. There's been certain signals, there's been certain actions that have shown the U.S. that Cuba's not ready to make that change, and they're not ready. But I don't think it's fair for us to expect them to be ready to make this dramatic change right now. The Cuban embargo has been in place for so long, and it hasn't made that much of a difference. It's time that a different approach needs to be made. And what that is, I'm not sure, but...
Mauricio, the Obama administration, very early on, made that policy change with the family contacts and the transfer of cash to relatives living on the island. Was there any proportional response on the other side? Thanks, guys, or here we'll release a couple of political prisoners. Anything?
Well, as you know very well, it takes two to salsa, and in this case, there have been gestures. they don't want to dance. I think the U.S. Has done some interesting minor, tactical moves in the issues of remittances, travel, communications. The OAS, the basically allowing them to start coming back into the Organization of American States, scrapping that resolution of 1962 that banned Cuba's membership. Those things are very important, but there are no gestures on the Cuban side. I think that the Castro brothers are not really interested in this. They're for some reasons, and that's what we have to understand. Why is it that they are not engaging in this conversation? Why is it that they're not making the smallest of the changes to show that they want a new relationship? Now, I would agree that while we wait for that to happen, because it's going to happen, maybe it's going to be after the Castros, the U.S. can continue moving along. I mean, the opening up, lifting the embargo, those things can be done. And I don't think really you need to wait until they react. But at the end of the day, a normal relationship will not exist with the Castros.